95% of all paint problems have nothing to do with the paint and everything to do with the surface prep. Most of these surface prep issues could have been eliminated by helping the customer with the entire project. Asking the right questions and offering the right advice on how to prepare the surface to achieve a good end result. In this video, we're going to learn how to help our customers with common problems and some do's and don'ts. Many customers think paint problems are caused by faulty or bad paint. This is a myth. Research has shown that 92 to 95% of all paint problems are due to lack of preparation. What are paint failures? Well, a paint failure refers to any problem resulting in a breakdown in the paint, including peeling, flaking, chalking, and even alligatoring. These failures are almost always the result of improper or incomplete surface preparation. They can also be caused by improper application, using the wrong applicator, or painting in unfavorable weather conditions. The best thing you can do for your customers is to help prevent problems before they happen. You do this by helping the customer with the total project. Don't just sell them a gallon of paint, ask questions and listen. Then give suggestions to help make their project easier and turn out the way they envision it. There are 3 questions you should ask every customer. First one is, what do you intend to paint? So it's not only what, but where. Is it inside? Is it outside? Which room is it? And what's it made of? Is it drywall, brick, masonry, tile, wood, vinyl siding, masonite? There's so many different surfaces. Make sure you know what surface they're going to be painting. This will help you determine what product and what surface prep you need to recommend. 2, what's the condition of the surface? Now this is where they lie the most. They say it's fine, but if it was fine, do you think they'd be painting it? Probably not. You need to dig deeper to find out the real condition of the surface. You then can advise them on how to prepare the surface in order to achieve a good paint job that will last for years. Last one, how do you intend to apply the paint? Now they could be thinking of applying it in a way that is really less desirable for good results. You need to know how they're thinking of applying it so you can give them good options that they should think of when they apply their paint. There are some rules to be followed when it comes to surface prep. The surface to be painted must be clean, dry, dull, smooth, and sound. If you think about it, if the surface isn't clean, what are you painting? You're painting the dirt. That dirt comes off, the paint's going to come with it. That'll be a peeling problem. Dry. If you have a moisture-laden surface, what's going to happen? The moisture is still going to come out. The paint's not going to just seal it in. It's going to come out, and when it does, it's going to cause a paint problem. Dull. When I say dull, I'm talking about the sheen of the paint. So if you paint a shiny surface, what's going to happen? Well, I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to be able to take your thumbnail and just peel that paint right off. So you've got to roughen up that surface, give it some bite, or use a primer designed for shiny surfaces so that paint will adhere. Smooth. If the surface you're painting is very rough, will the paint lay down for an even coverage and protection? No, it's not. There's going to be peaks and valleys and different coverage within those peaks and valleys. Last one, sound. Take rotted wood. So if you paint rotted wood, what do you end up with? You just end up with painted rotted wood. The wood is still rotted. It's still going to keep coming apart and degrading. So you have to replace the wood so you have a solid surface for your paint to grab a hold of. When cleaning a surface, it's just as important to use the right cleaner. Do not use dishwashing detergent to clean your surface. Most dishwashing detergents have lanolin in them to help keep your hands soft and prevent dishpan hands. The soap doesn't know the difference between your hands and your walls. So when you use it on the walls, it will do its best to stop your walls from having dishpan hands. Unfortunately, this will leave a residue that will lead to paint peeling down the road. One of the most common causes of paint problems is moisture. Now, it can be moisture trapped inside the home. It can be moisture trapped under a painted surface of a concrete patio, or it could be moisture trapped under floor paints used on a wooden deck. Think of moisture as paint's worst enemy. We are not just talking about rain pounding on the exterior of a house. There are many ways that moisture can damage a painted surface. One particular problem is moisture trapped beneath the painted surface. When moisture is trapped beneath the painted surface, it eventually moves towards the warmth of the sun. Unfortunately, that painted surface creates a barrier that prevents that moisture from escaping. Eventually, enough moisture will accumulate beneath that paint film to cause the paint to blister and then peel. The image on this page shows paint that has blistered. So let's discuss trapped moisture problems and what to do to avoid them. We'll begin with moisture trapped in a home. Moisture is created in many ways, by cooking, showering, laundry, dishwashing, or even cleaning. In the north, we even add moisture in the winter by using a humidifier. Groundwater can also come up through a home and add to that moisture issue. This moisture has to go somewhere, and will seek the path of least resistance. The correct way to get rid of moisture is have it vent to the attic. A properly vented home will have soffit vents and gable or ridge vents to help draw the moisture up and out of the home. This will give the moisture a way to get out. With the high cost of gas and electricity, people tend to insulate as much as possible. They will stuff insulation in those soffits and stop the natural airflow from the soffit vents up through the gable or ridge vents. This will stop the house from breathing correctly and lead to a moisture problem. When this moisture doesn't get pulled up and out through the attic, it seeks the path of least resistance, which is through the wall. When this moisture works to go through the wall, condensation forms behind the siding, and then when the sun comes out, it is pulled to the surface and resides under the paint film. If you have a peeling issue, one of the biggest causes is usually a moisture problem. Concrete is also a very difficult substrate to paint due to moisture issues. Hydrostatic pressure is caused when the water table is higher than normal under your concrete. The moisture seeps up and comes through your concrete. If the concrete is painted, it will get behind the paint film and cause a paint failure. Before you paint any concrete surface, you should perform a test for hydrostatic pressure. Now, using the term hydrostatic pressure with your customers will help them know you are the trusted paint expert. I call it one of our $20 words that makes us become the paint expert with our customers. So, how do you perform a hydrostatic pressure test? It's easy. You take a 2-foot by 2-foot piece of plastic and duct tape it down to the surface to be painted. If the surface is large, then do it in multiple locations. Moisture doesn't always come up evenly through the surface. It can come up on one side of the room, but not on the other. If you only put that plastic down in the area that doesn't have any moisture coming up, then you could have a potential issue in other areas. If there's moisture under the plastic at 24 to 48 hours, then there is a hydrostatic pressure problem. If the home has a basement, you can do the same test, whether they're considering painting the walls or the floor. You can never paint a deck and expect it to last long. The only way it would last is if you could paint all 6 sides of every board so moisture cannot get into any of the boards. What happens is the moisture gets into one of the 5 non-painted sides of the board. When the sun comes out, it pulls that moisture up through the painted surface and causes the paint to peel. Peeling is a common problem. Let's look at some of the causes. Peeling may involve some or all coats of paint. There may be a primer and a top coat, or simply multiple coats of paint. Occasionally, bubbles in the paint, called blisters, can occur before the peeling begins. The possible causes are seepage of moisture through joints that have not yet been caulked, leaks in the roof or walls, excess moisture escaping through the exterior walls, inadequate surface preparation, which can be caused by painting over dirt or chalk or painting over a shiny surface. It could be from using a lower quality paint or from applying an oil-based paint over a wet surface. Exterior peeling is usually caused by moisture, but can be caused by other things. As with other moisture-related paint problems, try to identify and eliminate any sources of moisture. Also check all joints between siding or masonry and window and door frames, and then recaulk if necessary. So what is the solution when you have peeling paint on your exterior surface? Well, the key thing is to identify the source of the moisture and eliminate that source. If you don't do that, the problem will just come back. Once you have done that, you need to prepare the surface by removing all the loose paint with a scraper or a stiff wire brush. Then you need to come back, sand all edges of the remaining paint. This makes it so there are not any 90-degree edges that will show through your new paint film. Once you do that, you can spot prime with EasyCare HP 208 oil-based primer, followed by EasyCare exterior latex paint in the sheen and color you choose. Interior peeling is less common, but it still happens. Some of the causes can be loss of adhesion of the paint film caused by high levels of moisture that penetrate the film and eventually they push the film away from the substrate. It can also be caused by painting over a glossy or a dirty surface. If you remember from a few slides back, it can also be caused by using dishwashing detergent to clean your walls, or maybe a different kind of cleaner that leaves a residue. Make sure you have proper ventilation so that your home can breathe properly. Alligatoring looks like a pattern cracking in the paint film that resembles the scales of an alligator. This can be caused by applying an oil-based paint over a latex paint. If you remember from our chemistry of paint section, latex paints are far more flexible than oil-based paints. If you put a paint that has high flexibility under one that doesn't, well, that top coat's going to crack and you're going to get alligatoring. It can also be caused by applying your top coat before the coat underneath is dry. Unfortunately, the best way to correct alligatoring is to remove all the paint down to the substrate. You can then use an oil-based primer like EasyCare Ultra Premium HP10 oil-based primer, followed by EasyCare Ultra Premium Exterior in the sheen and color of your choice. Blistering can be described as bubbles resulting from the localized loss of adhesion and lifting of the paint film from the underlying surface. It results from the loss of adhesion and the lifting of the paint. It can be caused by applying an oil base over a damp or wet surface, possibly moisture seeping into the building through exterior walls, or potentially even the exposure of latex paint to high humidity or moisture shortly after the paint is dried. Chalking is the formation of a fine powder on the paint film. It's actually the binder of the paint letting go, and you are getting that pigment and binder on your hand. This occurs normally, and if you used a cheaper quality paint, it will happen faster due to that lower quality binder and the amount of binders used in that cheaper can of paint. You can see it by running your hand over the surface. What is on your hand when pulled away is called chalk. If you don't get that chalk off the surface prior to painting, you will have a peeling problem. As the chalk lets go of the surface, it's going to take your paint with it. It's really no different than painting over dirt. So you have determined your surface to be painted has chalking on it. How do you get the surface ready for paint? Well, first thing you need to do is remove as much of the chalk as you can by washing and scrubbing the surface with a stiff brush. You can also use a house and siding wash to help clean that surface. You could use a power washer. They can be very helpful in getting the chalking off, but in the wrong hands, they can set the person up for a paint failure. If they get the tip of the sprayer too close, they can delaminate the surface of the wood. That wood will then continue to delaminate and take the paint film with it. Also, if they spray upwards, they will push water between the lap boards. All that water needs to dry out before painting, or it will lead to another paint failure. Once you have the surface prepared, come back, prime with EasyCare Exterior HP10 acrylic latex primer, followed by top coating it with EasyCare Exterior Ultra Premium in the sheen and color of your choice. Cracking and flaking starts off looking like hairline cracks. It then expands to flaking paint chips. This can be caused by a few different things. First thing, it could be the use of a low quality paint. Lower quality paints are lower in solids and leave a thinner paint film on the surface. 2. Thinning your paint too much. Just like cheap paint, the percent of solids go down, leaving you a thinner paint film. 3. Poor surface prep. This is especially true when you paint bare wood without priming. 4. Painting under too hot or too cold of conditions. If your hand doesn't want to set on the surface comfortably, the paint's not going to want to set there either. And 5, painting when it's windy so that the paint dries before it has a chance to soak in and grab a hold of that substrate. So what do you do if you have a surface to paint with cracking or flaking paint? First, remove the loose or flaking paint with a scraper or stiff brush. Make sure to feather sand the 90-degree edges, then spot prime any areas that go to the surface with EasyCare Exterior Oil-Based Primer HP208. Then put a good coat of EasyCare Acrylic Latex Exterior paint in the sheen and color you desire. We have been discussing feather sanding the edges for the last few problems. Here's an illustration on why you need to feather sand these edges. Another common paint-related problem, particularly in warmer climates, is mildew. Mildew is black, gray, or brown areas of fungus growth on the surface of paint or caulk. Mildew can be spread by wind-blown spores. It thrives in moist areas. Mildew grows more readily on flat or oil-based paints. Some possible causes are areas that tend to be damp and receive little or no direct sunlight. Maybe the use of a lower quality paint which may have little or no mildewcide in it. Painting over a substrate or a coating on which mildew has not been removed. Or using a flat or an oil-based finish in a highly mildew-prone area, kind of like a bathroom. Many people confuse mildew in their home with dirt. You need to be able to explain the difference. If you're unsure if you have mildew or if it's just dirt, you can perform a mildew test. Just simply pour some bleach into a small spray bottle, spray the bleach onto the area you want to check for mildew. If it disappears immediately, then it's mildew. If it runs down the wall, then it's dirt. No matter if it's mildew or dirt, you must remove it. You must clean that surface. If it's mildew, then you must use a bleach-based cleaner to kill that mildew. If you don't, it will live under your stain or paint forever and continually to come back to the surface. Once you've determined you have a mildew problem, you need to clean it off. The first step is to water down any plants you may have. If you don't, then the bleach may set on the leaves and kill the plants. The water will help dilute the bleach and help it to run off. When going to clean the surface, use a good cleaner, like our house and siding cleaner. Using a power washer can be a great way to clean a surface, but be very careful not to get too close. You should never get closer than 12 inches and don't use any power washer that exceeds 1200 psi. Getting closer or using too powerful of a power washer will cause the wood fibers to become exploded and they will not accept stain or paint correctly. They will also come off and make you think the stain is peeling when in fact it is the wood coming off taking the stain with it. Now let's review the steps you need to take once you determine you have mildew. First, soak any foliage or plants around your home to protect them. Always wear goggles and rubber gloves. Bleach is caustic and can burn your skin. Use a bleach-based cleaning solution, then scrub and rinse very thoroughly. If you do decide to use a power washer, make sure not to get too close or use too powerful of a washer. And then apply a top-of-the-line latex paint or stain. Mildew is not just outside. Kitchens and bathrooms, they can have mildew too. Generally, when a bathroom has mildew, it's because there's either no venting or the venting isn't working properly. Resolve that venting problem or you'll continue to have mildew issues. You must remove any mildew prior to painting. You should also avoid using any oil-based paints in areas that are prone to mildew. Also, the shinier the paint you use, the less teeth the mildew has to grab a hold of. Always recommend a semi-gloss paint for bathrooms. Efflorescence only occurs on stone or masonry substrates and is a crusty white salt deposit leached from mortar or masonry as water passes through it. Some possible causes are failure to adequately prepare the surface by removing any efflorescence that was there before, or excess moisture that's escaping through the exterior masonry walls from behind. Now let's discuss an efflorescence solution. Well, the first thing you need to do is eliminate the cause of the problem so any repairs you do last. If excess moisture is the cause, you need to eliminate the source by repairing the roof, cleaning out the gutters, downspouts, and sealing any cracks in the masonry with a high-quality, water-based all-acrylic or siliconized acrylic caulk. If moist air is originating inside the building, you need to consider installing vents or exhausting fans, especially in the kitchen, bathroom, and other moisture-prone areas. Once you have fixed the causes of the efflorescence, it's time to prepare the surface for paint. First thing you need to do is remove the efflorescence and all other loose material with a wire brush, a power brush, or a power washer. Then come back and thoroughly rinse the surface. Then allow the surface to dry for at least 48 hours. Then you're ready to prime and paint. You start by applying a quality water-based primer sealer like our MP1 primer sealer and allow it to dry completely. This will seal in and stop any efflorescence from coming back to the surface. Now it's time to apply a top quality exterior house paint like our EasyCare Exterior Ultra Premium in a sheen and color of your choosing. James Hardie came out with siding that is made of cement, but it looks like wood. It lasts longer and isn't prone to those insect issues that wood is. What it is prone to is issues when you go to paint it. Now it comes pre-primed, but that doesn't mean anything. You still must prime it using the correct primer. As an example, our MP1 masonry primer, followed up by some EasyCare Limitless exterior paint. Failure to do that may cause what we call alkali burn from the cement. It will look like the paint has faded in a very short period of time. The only way to stop that is to use a primer that stops that alkali burn like the MP1, followed by a high quality paint like EasyCare Limitless Exterior. Now let's talk about another problem called hat banding. Hat banding has become much more common with the advent of faster drying, low VOC paints. In the old days, paint stayed open or wet longer. You could trim an entire room and then come back and paint the walls. Now, paint dries much faster, and if you trim the entire room, the first part you trim will be dry, and you'll be painting another film of paint into it, which will cause it to be darker along the top and where you've trimmed versus where you're painting into it. That can also be caused by putting too much paint on when you trim the room by using a brush versus when you paint the wall with a roller cover. Unfortunately, the only way to fix a hat banding issue is by repainting the room. The next issue we'll discuss is surfactant leaching. Surfactant leaching is the concentration of water-soluble ingredients on latex paint. It creates a blotchy, sometimes glossy appearance, often with a tan or brownish cast. This occurs more often with tinted paints than premixed colors. It's also caused by painting in cool, humid conditions or maybe just before they occur. The increased drying time allows the paint's water-soluble ingredients to be leached out by the rain or rise to the surface just before the paint dries. So, how do you solve a surfactant leaching problem? If the problem occurs in the first day or so after the paint is applied, you should be able to rinse it off once the paint dries. Do not use a power washer. In most cases, you can just rinse it with a hose or let it wear off naturally. It has no effect on the quality of the coating. The last issue we're going to discuss is wrinkling. So first, what are some of the causes of wrinkling? Well, it can be many different things. It can be paint applied too thickly, which is usually when you're using an oil-based paint. It can be from painting a hot surface or in very hot weather. Remember to always put your hand on the surface to be painted. If you can keep your hand on that surface comfortably, then the paint's going to want to stay there also. If you have that feeling like you want to pull your hand away because it's too hot, the paint's going to have that same feeling and do the same thing. It can be caused by exposure of uncured paint to rain, dew, fog, or other high humidity levels. It can be from applying a top coat of paint to insufficiently dried first coat. Or, last but not least, it can be from painting over a contaminated surface, like a surface that has dirt or wax on it. So, if you have wrinkling, what do you do about it? Well, you need to scrape or sand the substrate to remove the wrinkled coating. Then you need to repaint, applying an even coat of a top quality exterior paint like EasyCare Ultra Premium. Make sure the first coat or primer is dry before applying that top coat. Always apply paints at the manufacturer's recommended spread rate. When painting during extremely hot, cool, or damp weather, allow extra time for the paint to dry completely, and remember, put your hand on the surface to be painted and make sure that your hand can rest there comfortably. Thank you for watching our video on problem solving. I hope it has given you the tools to help your customers achieve a problem-free paint job.